Calling to order the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting of Wednesday, November 8th, 2023 at 3:31 p.m. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Keys. Here. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge.
Present.
Chair Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderman Vollmer. You have 4 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Moving to the approval of the minutes, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st, 2023.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Keys.
Here, aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer. You have 4 aye votes.
By your vote, you have sustained the motion and passed the minutes of November 1st, 2023. We are going to go a little out of order today to accommodate the sponsor of the resolution. So we will move to item number 5, resolutions for review. Item number 1, resolution number 146, introduced by Alderwoman Kara Spencer. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the Alderwoman for accommodating me here going first here this afternoon. Resolution 146 pertains to the proposed wastewater rate increase proposed by Metropolitan Sewer District, MSD. I'll quickly kind of summarize where we're at here. We don't have any direct control of the sewer department, but the MSD is an unusual utility in that it's overseen by a board that is appointed by the mayor and the county executive of the city and county, and they have jurisdiction over the city and county of St. Louis. It's an unusual setup. Most of our utilities, as you well know, are overseen by the Public Service Commission at the state level. That is not the case for MSD. And so because of our direct governmental involvement here, I think it's especially important that the city of St. Louis and the county weigh in. The county, of course, did weigh in last night, if you may have seen, supporting a resolution very similar to this in a unanimous fashion. What this is requesting really is we're taking a look at our sewer district, as we all know, is a monopoly. When you go to get sewer service, you don't have a choice. You get MSD, and that's the way utilities work. MSD is looking for a rate increase, which is a reasonable thing to do. The cost of providing service is increasing. We're also, as you may know, under consent decree. And so there are some things related to the sewer service that our MSD has to perform and upgrade as we move forward. However, what we're looking at here is a proposal of a 32% rate increase over 4 years. This is an incredibly expensive rate increase to consider. As we know, the city doesn't have, most of our residents don't have metered water, and so a cost that would be passed along as a function of water usage that's estimated, which means our residents would have no recourse or ability to even influence what their rates would be. And so what we're suggesting here, and what I'm suggesting in this this resolution, which is exactly the resolution that was passed unanimously by St. Louis County yesterday, would be that we take a look at, instead of the 32%, the commissioners really had 2 reports they included to consider rate increase. One would be that 32% that the staff is recommending that we move forward with, and the other option, which the minority of commissioners suggested and wrote a report supporting, is a 24% rate increase. The difference really is not any difference in investment on the part of MSD, but really it is a financial accounting question. The ratio of savings versus debt service ratio is really what's at question here. What MSD is hoping to do is switch from a 1.6 ratio of savings to debt to a 1.8, which would allow them to have more money in the bank at the time, which could result, according to MSD, in some savings to our ratepayers, but that would really be on the back end and a very, very small amount. So and it would cost us an additional 32%. So what this resolution is doing is looking for supporting the 22%. We're not at all saying that MSD shouldn't have a wastewater increase. I think it's important to recognize that we do want to support an increase in our infrastructure. We do want to continue to have investment in our wastewater treatment and prevent as much of that wastewater from going into our rivers as possible, and to continue the work that MSD is doing to support the work that's mandated by our federal government. So with this resolution, I'm hoping the Board of Aldermen can make us to take a stand and say that we support a lower rate increase, support our residents, and asking for MSD to keep their debt service ratio the same at 1.6, rather than electing to move that up to 1.8 and costing ratepayers an additional 8% in rate increase. I'll also point out this has a major financial impact on the city of St. Louis. We're one of the largest MSD customers in the city, I think the second largest. Our bill last year, according to the budget director, was not $1.9 million to MSD, so a rate increase of 33% would be to the tune of almost $500,000. It'd be a lot of money. So, we're looking to save our bottom line and to protect our ratepayers on that. And with that, I'm asking for your favorable consideration. I also recognize, I think there's folks from MSD that are here. I think there's also some members from the public, or maybe at least one member from the public that may want to speak on it, but I'll take questions, of course.
Thank you so much, Alderman. Thank you for bringing this forward. You don't have any guest speakers today, right?
I could offer John Coffin from the Consumers Council of Missouri as a guest speaker. For full disclosure, I serve in a volunteer capacity on the board of that organization that supports ratepayers. We particularly focus on low-income ratepayers and supporting them in rate cases. So with that, I could have John come up.
If he's your guest presenter, sure. John, we're going to need to swear you in real quick, Madam Clerk.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you could state your name and which company you're with.
John Coffman, Coffman. I'm with the Consumers Council of Missouri. Do I just hold this like this? I know. It's kind of awesome. Start singing. All right. Well, thank you, Chair Schweitzer and committee members. We are here today asking that you support a balanced approach to sewer rates. We are not asking for anything crazy. We are asking actually for a 24% increase, but we're asking that instead of one that would be much higher, somewhere 32 or 35%. And the only thing at issue is not, there are no jobs that are at issue. There's no projects we think should be deferred. All the same projects are going to get done either way, no matter which position you suggest here. The problem is that what MSD wants is they want an extra amount of cash on hand that they have never needed before. And it's to be clear, it's not changing their policies on debt coverage. Rather, it's what assumptions go into the calculation of rates. How much extra money do you think that they need to be ready to pay their debts? Our position is the same position and the method of calculating rates that we did 4 years ago, and 4 years before that, and 4 years before that. It is a calculation based on 1.6x debt coverage ratio, and that is what we believe a much more reasonable balance. And when you're setting rates for a monopoly particularly, you want to balance the economic ability of the utility to attract capital and to borrow money with the economic interests of the consumers, both the businesses and the families that you represent. And this time around, for some reason, the MSD has asked, well, in fact, they have asked for this extra amount of cash in the past and been denied it. It's been recommended against by the Rate Commission. So this is something that has been rejected in the past, this excessive amount of money. And we just think it's patently obvious that it's unnecessary, because the method that we would recommend, staying the course, status quo method of calculating rates, has produced a AAA bond rating, an envious bond rating that no other utility in our region enjoys. And it's clearly been sufficient. So we have a track record for our position. Our position is a very moderate haircut on what it is that they want, but it does involve millions of dollars. Millions of dollars, if you go with the majority position, that would be sucked out of the community, be taken off the kitchen table of the families who have to pay their bills every month, and it would affect businesses, which would then have an effect on the jobs and the economic well-being of those other small businesses in the community. Our interest on behalf the Consumers Council of Missouri, what we're looking at is low-income customers. That's who we represent, and we know that there are a lot of folks in the city who are just this far away from being insolvent, just this far away from losing their homes. And so every dollar counts. Sure, it'd be great. I'd love to have a big rainy day fund to be able to pay for anything that comes up, but it's nothing that is, our position is nothing that would put MSD in an unfavorable position. It is something that, in fact, if something extraordinary happens to the economy, by the way, if it happens, it will happen to everybody else too, and they needed this money, they could act quickly. They don't have to wait every 4 years. That's just been the practice of going it. So they have the tools if something crazy happens in the economy to protect it. So I urge you to look at the county resolution, which was passed unanimously yesterday. I've got a copy of that if you'd like it. I also have a copy of a letter from the Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, who are also taking.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely take that material. Thank you so much.
And if I could put a little bit of numbers on the savings that you've heard about. MSD will tell you that this is a good idea because it's going to provide savings for the consumers down the road. But it's paying many dollars more than are necessary to save a very small amount of money down the road. It's I think a really misleading characterization. The way I understand the potential savings that they would foresee if they had this extra cash would be in the neighborhood of $1.76 that you would save, but that wouldn't even be realized until 2035. In the meantime, over the next 11 years, you'd be paying many dollars more each month to get $1.76 down the road. So we're just asking that you support the moderate position that has been more than enough over the past few rate cases at MSD. And we appreciate what they do, and we just say again that this is that our position is the right balance and one that has worked in the past.
Thank you. What we'll do here is go through the committee, see if there are questions for you all, and then I would, if MSD representatives are interested in speaking, love to hear from you and have the same thing with committee members, getting to hear from you and then ask you questions. So with that, we will go with Alderman Ballmer, see if you have any questions.
Alderwoman Spencer, your resolution, is it mirroring the county's resolution? Or I peer into it, are there differences between the two?
I think thank you, Alderman Vollmer. I think it's pretty much the same. It's basically, I mean, we're not asking for no rate increase. The rate increase would just be that 24% that was supported by the minority of the commissioners. So as opposed to the 32%. So it is pretty much the same thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys?
I'm just kind of, and thank you, Chair Schweitzer, but I'm just kind of shocked that there's a request for any increase with the state of the economy right now, and so many people are struggling, and we've got so many issues. I can tell you right now that my constituents would not appreciate an increase of anything at this time, and I'm just like I'm just shocked. So I'll continue to listen, but I can tell you now that this is not something that's sounding good to me.
Yeah, I mean, we have two options, really. I mean, the options would be the 32% or the 24%. So we are opting, obviously, for supporting the 24%.
So 25% or a third. So
Yeah, I mean, so it is awful. You know, I think to your point, any rate increase is going to be hard to swallow. So we're looking to lessen the blow as much as possible and go with the lower option.
Thank you. And Alderman Keys, we will circle back to you if you have more questions after MSD is able to speak. Go ahead.
If I just add another point that is relevant for the city and not the county, and that is that in the county, vast majority of homeowners do not have water meters, and the sewer rate is based on the way that the water rate is set. And so unlike someone like me who lives in the county, I would not have the ability to serve on water in order to save on the water or the sewer rate. And so it's a very large set amount that is unavoidable. And I just wanted to point that out, that city residents have even less ability to deal with the increases.
Thank you. I know you all are going to be mad at me. Who is next? I'll have Michael go last. Go ahead, Rashid. Oh, sorry, Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm just looking at the city and county one, and I do see some differences in them. I mean, it looks like majority of it is the same. I'm looking at one on the county that says, whereas a minority report from the MSD rate commissioner suggested a 24.18 increase would be a significant to funding the proposed projections. I know there's two alternatives. Have the MSD said they wanted one or the other, or they're just bringing forward the two alternatives?
So it's my understanding that the MSD staff are recommending the 32%, the larger rate increase. And that's what the staff requested, is my understanding. I'm getting some no's from the MSD folks in the room, John, but.
Because the one from the county, like I said, says that the MSD rate commissioner suggested the 24.18, which is.
The minority of commissioners recommended that position.
So who makes the decision is to do the higher end or lower end position?
The appointees who are on the MSD board will vote tomorrow evening to either adopt the recommended 32%, which is what the staff has recommended they do. They can reject it, or according to the MSD, the charter, they can amend it. They can adopt an amended version, which is what we're suggesting they do, and adopt the minority reported recommendation, which is the 24%, which is lower than the 32%.
And who brought the 24%? So you're saying the MSD?
The commissioners wrote two reports. One, the majority supported, which is the 32%, and the other report was a 24% rate increase, which was supported by the minority of MSD commissioners.
Yeah. Let me just read this paragraph from the minority report. So the commissioners on this advisory group called the Rate Commission, Commissioners Goss, Palins, Stein, and Tonjes, who's the chair of the Rate Commission. There are other minority reports and other issues, but this is the only issue that we're really concerned about, this one minority report on page 155 of the Rate Commission report. And this is the opinion of those four commissioners who are in the minority. The opinions of the rate consultant regarding an inability to meet bond covenants are entirely conjecture, as are those of MSD concerning what might occur 4 years hence. Further, the comments are not supported by the evidence, and it is apparent from the district's evidence and that of our own rate consultant who evaluated the alternative debt service coverage ratios that all of the formulas debt service coverage at 1.6 or above, which is the coverage that the underwriters require. There is a cost, though, to being overly conservative in this case and adding more money. The cost is being borne by those who least afford it or are able to afford it in our population. As such, this overly conservative policy places an unfair burden on certain classes of ratepayers in the district. So that's the position we favor. And
to be clear, I'm asking questions. I stand with Alderwoman Keys. We just passed a water increase rate here at the city of St. Louis, which will also be increased again, next year by another additional $5. Here we are again talking about another an increase, and like Alderwoman Keys, mentioned, and I know she has a little bit more heart of the North Side, but I have parts of the North Side where people are, I think of residents in the JVL and the St. Louis Place neighborhood that are just struggling to try to get by, and here we are talking about another rate increase. I understand that maybe these things are essential. I know water is definitely an essential thing that we need to be funding. I'm it's still looking through the MSD proposal of what they are needing this rate increase for. And I guess that's a question, or I could wait to MSD come up to ask them what the rate increase would be for. So we're suggesting the 24,
And we're suggesting, so if we're looking at the county resolution, it words it like this. The advisory body, the MSD Rate Commission, reviewed the proposed rate increase on September 5th, 2023, and recommended two alternatives: a majority position of 32.4% and a minority position of 24.2%. So that kind of summarizes what we're looking at, those two positions. And we are aligning with the county, or this resolution is aligning with the county and recommending the lower of those two. I would also be comfortable saying just to reject the 32%. I mean, because whether you say adopt the 24 or not, I just think it's important that we say we are rejecting that higher rate. We're saying, okay, we'll stomach the 24 only because it's so much lower than the 32, and also recognizing that there is an increase in cost of doing business, and we're not trying to make MSD go out of business, flush all of our toilet water into the Mississippi, but we just want to keep the financial assumptions and calculations the same and as easy to digest for our residents and for the city. That $500,000 is no small amount of money to withstand on our own budget.
I wish I thought about it. I would have had a resolution come forward to say reject both of them and tell MSD to not do an increase at all.
You're welcome to make an amendment resolution just to remove the adoption of that and just reject it. But I think that would be the natural,
Yeah, and I think this is a small one. So I just see the county, they did 24.18. I mean, we're talking small decimals. That's a one.
And that's over 4 years. And they may tell you that those numbers aren't exactly right because they may break down differently between the county and the city.
Okay.
Either way, on this one issue, whatever the increase is for your constituents, it will be 20% less if they don't adopt this new assumption that adds extra financing costs.
And if we adopt the minority position, how much roughly would that be, I guess, monthly, yearly, for families?
It just depends. I think you would look at your bill right now and somewhere more than 20% increase away. So if you're probably paying less than $100, but if you were paying $100, it'd be $124 at the end of 4 years.
Okay. I just know usually I want to say, and I could be wrong, during the water rate, we kind of had an average of what that increase would look like, but is it?
That's in the county where there's metered water, Alderman Vollmer, so it's a different situation. So in the city, we base it on the number of wash closets and bedrooms in a house.
Okay,
So,
I'll save that question for MSD if they have a rough average, because I'm not seeing what that looks like if you have like 1 to 2 or 3 to 4 or 8 to 10, just an average, so that when we if I decide to vote on this resolution, that at least voters will have some type of estimate. Percentages, is cool and all, but some people like to know like a hard number average. Yeah. No questions at the moment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning.
I have no further questions at this time. I hear what you're saying. It is getting too expensive to live, and I share my colleagues' concern, especially considering the other rate increases that we've been having. I'm eager to hear from MSD, so I'm just going to end my questioning and let's get on with it.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. And I hope you're, obviously, Alderman Spencer, you're here for the resolution, but I hope you can stick around too. Folks with MSD, would you be able to come up to the podium and introduce yourselves and get sworn in really quickly? Swear first.
Swear first, okay.
And then introduce yourself. Thank you.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Most certainly do.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate you coming today. Thank you so much. I know you all sent us a very thorough kind of point-by-point breakdown of the resolution last week, right before the meeting. And the thing that keeps popping into me is, and hopefully you'll address it, it says that the city would be a 22% increase for unmetered folks, which is less than what's in this current resolution. And that, so I just hope you get to that. And I just want to.
I will explain that.
Okay, thank you, because that was very confusing.
Okay, let me start with the, so good morning, honorable afternoon, honorable members of the Board of Aldermen. My name's Brian Holscher. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of MSD. Here to discuss the proposed resolution regarding MSD rates that are before you. We understand that there are multiple perspectives on the best path forward. After a thorough review, the Independent Rate Commission concluded that it is more prudent for our customers to pay an additional $2.35 per month on average over the next 7 years, rather than burden our customers and their children with hundreds of millions of dollars of additional debt and interest over the next decades. That's what came out of our Independent Rate Commission. The Board of Trustees is currently reviewing the recommendations of the Independent Rate Commission. As stewards of the public trust, we're committed to be transparency and factual accuracy. I would like to clarify some of these misunderstandings so the Board of Aldermen can be deliberate with full breadth of knowledge. I'll now go over some of the misunderstandings. And quite honestly, I'm going to apologize ahead of time. You're going to think we're talking about two different things, but that's kind of what's been going on for the last couple months. So we have sent you a previous document with some items on it. We have submitted written documents. I'm just going to go over a few of the written document items. So a couple of these, and the first one is the question, Ms. Schweitzer, that you asked. So MSD, every 4 years, for those city customers who are on attribute billing, they experience the same thing with city water. We have to use city water's billing method. That's the law. We go through every 4 years and we take a look and see if there is a cultural change in water usage. So the actual increase, you're right, that 32%, that is, or 34%, that is being advertised district-wide for the unmetered residential customers, the increase over 4 years that the Independent Rate Commission proposed is 22%. The reason for that is on the first year, those customers in the city will get a 0.8% decrease in their current charge and then pay the increases that are shown over the next 4 years. We do that because the assumed flows based on a study, we reduce those, and therefore the burden on those customers are less. So what the Rate Commission approved is a 22% increase over 4 years for the unmetered residential customers in the city of St. Louis. Next, the resolution claims that the Rate Commission recommended two alternatives. They didn't. The Rate Commission in this particular case recommended what MSD had originally submitted. That doesn't often happen. It happens in this case. The Rate Commission, therefore, has sent that to the Board of Trustees. They have three things they can actually do. They can approve what was presented by the Rate Commission. They can take in public comment, the 4 minority reports, any other public information they want, and consider addressing or accepting those types of things. The minority report happens to be one of those. It doesn't hold any different standing than anything else. The third option the board has is to do something completely different that's not even been recommended. That's what our Board of Trustees is currently considering what to do. So there isn't an either-or proposition in front of our Rate Commission, in front of our Board of Trustees. They're looking at that rate proposal and all the information that's been provided to them to determine where to move next. Next, the claim that the MSD has changed its financing standards. So our financing goals for the past decade that I've been executive director and CEO is 2.5% coverage for our senior debt and 1.8% coverage for our subordinate debt. That has been in place for the last 2 rate commissions. It's been in place for this rate commission. It is exactly what we communicate to our bonding entities who give us, 1, a AAA, The other two AA pluses, which is pretty good since most of our metrics are actually below AA. That is what we use. Now, I think where the confusion comes up, and this is kind of a discussion that happens every 4 years with the Rate Commission, the Rate Commission has no authority to tell MSD what financial metrics it can use. It's per charter, its task is to take our rates and review the proposed rates and offer different rate structures. That's happened in the two previous rate proposals. They're absolutely correct about that. The process that MSD goes through is the board takes a look at what that is, staff does an evaluation, a risk analysis of what we think other savings might pop up next to the 4 years to make sure we can maintain that 1.8 and 2.5 coverage. We've successfully done that in the previous two rate proposals. That information was presented on October 26th, along with the time we allowed these folks to be able to speak as well. That is the metric that is the basis of our proposal, and is also it is not changed. It is also the basis for our current bond rating that we currently have. Oh, okay. So it just hasn't changed, and we don't know what else to do with that other than folks seem to have a different opinion. The last point, and this goes to what's going on, MSD has 16 more years of capital work to complete, in addition to other regulatory requirements that need to be addressed after 2040. So you're asking what MSD is doing. MSD is meeting its legal and its regulatory obligations. This next 4-year capital program, 98% of the capital work is required by either a legal consent decree or regulatory requirements and schedule. That obviously leaves you to think, what is the other 2% doing? The other 2% is required in order to do required preventative maintenance on the pump stations that are on the St. Louis flood wall that help protect the city of St. Louis from high Mississippi River level. We felt that was high enough that we had to put it in the program. There's no optional stuff being done. We're not looking at anything other than what is specifically required for us to do. There's a question, what is the impact? And the question was asked, and I'll give you that. So the proposal that's in the minority report, the savings to customers over a 7-year period would be an average of $2.35 per month over a 7-year period. So every month, the average, it's a little low at the beginning, becomes more, and then tails out at the end. Around year 8, it becomes more expensive to the tune of almost $2 per month. And after that period, you project out the comparative analysis, it keeps getting to be more expensive than what the Rate Commission approved because we are borrowing more money, have more debt service, and therefore more fixed costs in the future. How long does that go? That goes until we're done bonding. If you take that, we'll probably be done bonding somewhere in the neighborhood of the late 2030s. And for the duration of the bonds, then we're talking, this will go on almost to 2060, that there'll be an additional cost. One other item. What was that? Oh, also, I went back. We have not changed our financial metrics. A 1.6 debt coverage ratio on our all-in debt would be brand new to the investors who buy our bonds, brand new to the bond rating agencies, brand new to, I know this board of trustees hasn't gone through this process, but past boards, it would all be brand new. So what I just told you, the scenario about the impact on the ratepayers, and this was all considered by the Rate Commission, what the impact would be if our bond rating gets lowered, and remember, many of our metrics are below AA metrics. We are managing to keep our AA and in one case a AAA plus rating. If that happens, our cost of financing goes up, and that only makes the proposal that's in the minority report that much more expensive than what their independent Rate Commission has suggested MSD's board move forward. So that's it. I would like to mention just one or two things on the county resolution. We were going to respond, and we plan to the county council the same way we respond to you with some what we believe are inaccurate information. Unfortunately, the county agenda was not really clear and didn't really indicate it was MSD. It was kind of something else, and we missed it. We'll be firing them off information. Some of those councilmen have actually started calling us and asking for information. So we'll go through that process. And again, I perfectly understand, especially for the city of St. Louis, what's happening to your costs. The city mayor's office was nice enough to call us, let us know what's happening with the city water rates. Those have a great impact on MSD as well. Obviously, not just for our headquarters, but especially for our operating facilities that are within the city of St. Louis. So, Ms. Chairman, that is the end of my remarks.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your side of the story. We'll go through the committee. Alderman Vollmer.
So if I'm hearing things correctly, you're saying there's actually, this increase is going to affect year 8, is what you're saying?
So,
Nate?
right, the way it works is by decreasing that ratio, you are able to borrow more money early on. So there's an early savings, and that's what you get your about $2.35 per month on average for 7 years.
Okay.
Then the proposal in the minority report is to increase and have more debt than what's in the proposal recommended by the rate commission. That will then continuously keep increasing future rates because of the debt service for having more borrowing.
Okay. And what we're talking about here is a resolution, which is basically our opinion being sent out to the public and has no true bearing on what's going to happen. And naturally, our opinions are watched by our constituents, and we're here to watch out for constituents. And maybe the information, sometimes gets discombobulated, as they say, by many people. I just would like to know, say somebody's paying $60 a month right now, what's going to happen to them over the next 4 years with their bill? Just, I know it's hard to say because of how our rates are, but just a ballpark, even anything.
So if you would give me, and it's about 65 is what the average city customer is paying right now. If you don't let me, instead of 4, if you'll give me 7 years, it's a savings of $2.35 per month on average over that 7-year period.
Okay, so their bill's not going to go from $60 to $75 within the first year, or was what you're telling me?
Well, I'm talking about the difference between the two.
Okay, all right, okay.
The current billing, like I said, we've got a 22% increase. I don't remember what the starting point is, but whatever a customer's bill is right now, 4 years from now in the city, if you are a unmetered residential customer, your bill will be up 22% higher in 4 years.
Okay, all right, good. Naturally, because we're, the water department's just hit us with this, and that's a different animal than what we are going through, because this is just in our opinion voting, and we had to actually pass the water rate. So we're just telling you that we either like this or we don't like this today.
So, yeah, as a matter of fact, I signed up as being not for or opposed. There is actually an argument for both provisions. If you think that immediate savings of that amount is worthwhile, that's fine, as long as we think you factually need to know. It's like not paying cash and keep using a credit card. You're going to be building up future debt. That's what will happen. It's a very legitimate position that somebody could take, that we understand that risk later on and that cost. We think the immediate relief is important. We understand that. I think the only reason we're here is we just want to make sure you factually understand the consequences of what's being laid out. And this is what our Board of Trustees is currently looking at.
All right, thank you. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your time. Alderwoman Keys, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Schweitzer. Has MSD looked into any alternative funding grants or federal dollars that could offset this cost for our constituents?
MSD is greatly successful in acquiring federal dollars. I'm also going to go down the list here. We currently have a $70 million authorization with the Corps of Engineers, which will be raised to $100 million here pretty soon, hopefully. They are helping us with a lot of the work that's being done in North City around the combined sewer system. They go in, instead of us paying for the whole thing, they will take over the job and pay for 75%. That's a great amount. The biggest savings that our industry gets out of federal funding is through low-interest loans that are available through the state that come from the federal government. They're called state revolving funds, or SRF. The interest rate has a 70% subsidy by the federal government. When things were good, we were paying, our borrowing was at like 0.7%. It was really good. That's where most of the federal funding through an entity like MSD, that's where most of that comes. We do have something called WIFIA. That's a program where for wastewater you can go and actually borrow money at treasury rates directly from the federal government. We participated in that. We do on occasion get earmarks on occasion for specific projects. We are in DC, Washington, DC pretty consistently. I'm on the board of the National Association of Clean Water Agencies. We are constantly lobbying Congress to make sure we have monies available, to make sure I'll take a big credit for our organization for the low-income water assistance program that recently came, kind of the equivalent of LIHEAP went in place that help people who are low income get those. We work with that. The ARPA dollars that you guys get as a lump sum, MSD, because of the kind of municipal corporation we are, formed through the state constitution, we didn't get a direct grant. What we had to make were competitive selections. And so we went through that competitive process and we were awarded $22 million, ARPA dollars, to do stormwater projects in North City and North County. So we're constantly pursuing whatever dollars are available. Since you brought it up, I'll expand a little, understand a couple other pressures we're having. The interest rates we assumed in the rate proposal that the rate commission considered are higher than what were the estimates of the market rates. That's something we're going to have to deal with. And another piece, I just mentioned the SRF. The House of Representatives 2 days ago passed a bill cutting the funding for that program by 2/3, down to $533 million a year from whatever previously. So I'm not of any mind that that's really what it'll go through, but there's probably pressures on all kinds of low interest funds we got before or grants. The pressures probably, all signs are, there's going to become less and less of that available. And so, but we'll keep pushing, we'll keep lobbying up in DC, we'll keep testifying in front of Congress and try and make sure they make funds available.
And thank you. I'm glad to hear that you all are pursuing alternative funds to take care of some of these issues. But at this time, I'm telling you what I'm hearing from constituents is that this is just too much. It's the straw that's breaking the camel's back. It's one thing after another, and it just feels like everything is piling on right now. And in the conversations that I'm having with constituents and the struggles that they are having, I understand how vital us having adequate sewer service is. And I applaud you all for pursuing alternative financial plans to aid in that. And I wonder if maybe this could be pushed off as you continue to look for other sources in terms of grants or anything else that might become available that are not available at this time to offset or, because when I hear 20, rounded to the nearest percent, 25%, I'm like, oh no, 25 or 30% is like, no, 33%. I'm just thinking that now is not the time. So, and that's my opinion based on the conversations that I'm having with my constituents.
Perfectly understand, and that's a perfectly legitimate position.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for your testimony. I think it was helpful. I know the document that you sent over kind of clarified some items that may need to get cleaned up just a little bit if this resolution were to pass at the City of St. Louis. I appreciate you and I'm not sure if your colleagues that to speak, but for being
Bess. Bess.
Miss Bess.
Yes.
Thanks, Miss Bess.
He is the best.
Miss Bess for Miss Bess, or Bess for Miss Bess. But I have you guys had community, and maybe I've missed them. So have you had community meetings around these issues, and if so, what locations?
So for the consent decree work, which is a majority of everything we have to do over, our current consent decree duration is 28 years. So for that, there was a massive amount of public communication, public input on what should we do. We had some leeway on how much we had to do from a regulatory perspective based on the input from customers. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest ones was from the city of St. Louis customers about, do we eliminate the overflows that are going in the Mississippi River, or we have an alternative where we can still meet water quality standards, cost way less. That obviously affects the citizens of the city of St. Louis. I remember that as being particularly comments we've got. So we go through this. That consent decree, once written, actually has absolutely every project and every date that we have to do for the next 28 years. It is laid out in the consent decree and was made public at the time that it was agreed to. The regulatory standards, we do go through that. The two big ones we're facing right now is a change in the clean air standards, which forced us to accelerate the work on the incinerators. We've moved forward with that. That was a minor change. The folks who were involved at that time that were involved with the issue, we went with them. Did we go and actually talk to individuals? Usually when we simply update technologies within a certain facility, it's still the same type of it's still the same process. We just normally don't go out and make any specific contact with the residents. The other one was nutrients. We do have to take, outside the consent decree, we do have to remove nutrients out of the flows that are coming to us in order to address the hypoxia issue in the Gulf of Mexico. That's a small impact now, a pretty big impact as we reach 2040. Okay, I'm sorry.
To be clear, I was like, that all sounds, but I was curious on this, this rate increase, what engagement was done from MSD, and if so, where?
So I'm glad you with the number. MSD went and got input as part of developing, we start developing our proposal this year in the summer of 2022. We're going out to strategic stakeholder groups, interested individuals. I don't have the numbers of who we spoke to. One would be 24/1, for instance, Chris Krahmeyer's group, and the mayors up there, as what they think about this proposal, what kind of input we got both on the wastewater and the stormwater side. As part of the rate proposal itself in the rate commission, they have a separate set of consultants. They have a legal consultant, they have a rate commission consultant, and a communication consultant. And while the charter only requires them to have one public meeting, they actually had 14 different public meetings. The process was broadcast virtually for every one of their meetings. One of the things we got was, it became very apparent, it's a shame we are last and came after electric, gas, water, and all those increases. We're kind of, some of the comment was, you know, all these other things have happened and now you're stepping up. Unfortunately, we were the last. So there's a public comment process for that. There's a public comment process and engagement process for every project we do, matter of fact. Unless it's just on our property, which are very few. Most of our work is done outside of MSD's property on easements. And so we actually do outreach for every project we do.
Gotcha. And I think I remember talking with some of my colleagues that attend some of those public hearings. I don't know where I missed it, but I know the stakeholders in 24/1, 24/1 is a majority of North County mayors, correct?
Yeah, it was a good opportunity when Chris brought it up for us to, you can imagine, for MSD to be able to get the attention of 22, I think they're 22 now instead of 24, but get 22 mayors in one place and be able to explain something to them all at one time. They were a really good place to go to try and get the word out and get input from the public as to what they thought about the proposals.
glad to hear there was in the North County area engagement. My recommendation, we went from 28 to 14 down here at the board. Four of us that represent north of Delmar would have been good to talk to those stakeholders to figure out how we could have had a public hearing and work with the community and like the Herbert Hoover Boys and Girls Club. Because again, I echo the sentiments of Alderwoman Keys. You know, our wards are all different. Some are richer than others, and this increase will have a different impact on some residents compared to others. And knowing that this was coming down the pipeline, it would have been amazing to try to partner and coordinate to at least educate the community. But I also agree with Alderwoman Keys. I couldn't. And after just recently doing a water rate increase, feel good to go back to the residents and say I voted to support any type of increase at the moment, and would also hope maybe there's some other avenues of funding or opportunities where we can come back next year to look at a way to do this and not. I mean, it's been less than 4 months that we just passed a water rate increase, and then suggesting to do any type of increase is just unbelievable to the people that I serve. So,
and to answer a question, I think I understand completely. We are on a 4-year cycle. Now, understand, while it may not be reflected in the current rates, whatever monies we are able to save during those 4 years, we don't spend. They simply go towards funding the next 4 years before we calculate our needs for the next 4. So just understand, some folks claim we give bonuses, we have give money. That's not really what happens. So.
no more questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman. Vice Chair Browning?
Thank you. I do appreciate MSD being here today to answer questions about this. My colleagues have brought up how difficult this is to consider, considering the many increases we've seen. Almost everything in life is getting more expensive, and going last, as you put it, is also put you in a difficult position. I'm curious, we have 8.2% difference between these two rate proposals. And I understand there's more minority positions as well, but the two we're discussing today, the 24% or the 32%. So there's an 8.2% difference. Can you speak a little bit to, you said the 24% would be like making the minimum payment on your credit card. But the 34% would allow you to service the debt better. Can you explain why an option somewhere in the middle wasn't pursued? I'm concerned that, there's going to be too big of an increase here. And I'm just curious kind of what went into the calculation between these different options.
So we'll take the base option the rate commission recommends. It does happen to be MSD staff's recommendation, and the difference between the other ones. So like I said, MSD's board of trustees there's not like except one or the other. They're looking at other various changes. The issue is what's really driving not the immediate cost as well, but especially the future cost. And so we're at 1.8% coverage for all in for our bonds. We are trying to maintain bond coverage, both to maintain the interest rates that we have to pay. Also, by having our rates lowered gives us less flexibility in the future. We have 16 more years of this kind of spending that we have to get through. Inflation was tough. We had projected our increases would be in the 4% range. We're making up for inflation like everybody else that occurred over the past couple of years. So the issue is actually the change in the bond coverage ratio. At 1.8%, the most cost-effective thing to do is for us to have 60% of the program paid for by bonds, 40% by cash. If you lower the bond coverage ratios to 1.6, that can permit you to borrow for 70% of the program and have cash for 30. That cash difference is where the benefit comes from in the alternative scenario. And that's good up front, and if that's found to be acceptable and where you want to go, that's perfectly fine. The problem is that then burns out because you end up with much more debt service when you're borrowing 70% versus 60. So we did look at some in-betweens. The problem is we are right now, our metrics for maintaining our bond rating, many of them are below the bond rating we currently have. And we are fearful there's really a big impact if our bond rating goes. And that's really what we're looking at. So we actually looked at in-betweens. The risk is kind of sort of the same. So when the rate commission asked, we said, or our board asked, what are you seeing here? We're thinking, we don't know if there's in-between scenario. I think it's one or the other, because the big risk is losing bond rating, having bond rating reduced. That's really the risk. It exists with kind of any in-between scenario. So we had recommended the board, they not necessarily considered, they've looked at it. I don't know what they're going to do. They haven't necessarily told me what they're thinking, but they are looking at in-between scenarios. I know that's a long technical answer. I apologize.
No, that's what I'm looking for. So, and that we're just talking about wastewater here, and MSD also handles stormwater, and there's different costs that are being considered there, correct?
True. So in the rate proposal, yeah, this was just about wastewater. There's a stormwater part. MSD and the city experiences in the Ellendale area. Absolutely no money for flooding, no money for creek erosion. It's not our legal responsibility. The creeks are owned and maintained by others. The floodplains are managed by others. That's where it sits right now. Our charter does allow us to raise funds to address those issues, and obviously to be in cooperation with everybody, with other municipalities. We've put that up. This would be the third time we've put something up to try and start funding those to the tune of about $35 million per year. That kind of proposal was turned down 53-47 by the public in 2019. However, we get enough public input saying, try again, try again. We're doing something different. The biggest component being a grant program, the city included, to make monies available so that you can do your own prioritized stormwater work, whether it's buyouts or other kind of work. So that's in there. The cost for that is based on what 50% of our public polled said they would be willing to pay for stormwater. So to generate that $34 million, the public has indicated they don't want to pay more than $2 per month. The median appraised value of a home for tax purposes is $175,000. So if you want to get, what we set it up for is for that median value, we've put a rate proposal in place, 7.45% property tax increase. For a median value home, the cost will be an additional $25 per year or $2 per month. And that's for the public to decide. That's a pretty simple one. That is it worth the money? If it is, we'll start providing the service. If it isn't, MSD has no funding to address those. So that's the other part that's in the rate proposal.
Well, thank you. And we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. But that is a big concern as we see increased storms and runoff from that and flooding throughout our city. But today we're here to talk about wastewater, and I did go to one of the engagement meetings that you all held at the MSD headquarters downtown West, and I heard loud and clear from people saying we can't afford this. And I do appreciate the amount of engagement that you all did. I thought that was the responsible thing to do, and I think that's always important when we're talking about rate increases like this. But if we're not listening when we do that engagement, then what's the point of it? So I'm listening to my constituents, and I'm hearing that we have far too many increases right now. I think it's very interesting that we keep talking about this comparison to a credit card, because I feel like it's getting to the point where people are going to have to start paying their utilities on credit. We're just hammering away at them in every single place, and some of it's not our fault, but some of it is. And MSD is a public utility, but we have a financial responsibility here So I guess my question for you is, are you saying the 34% increase is the financially responsible decision to make here?
Long-term, yes. We know we have a 20-year program. We have optimized it to be as affordable as possible over the next 20 years. I will add one thing. I'm not going to go over our customer assistance program. We have a low-income program that cuts everybody's rates in half. The rate commission had asked, and we indicated we were looking at it, expanding that program. We know it doesn't catch everybody. There's a gap between the top of that program, which tops out at 2 times the poverty rate or 2.5 times for elderly folks, looking at possibly expanding that and seeing what the financial impact would be. The rate commission had indicated they thought we should look at that. We're not disagreeing, and we're planning on looking to see if there's a way to at least expand that type of relief.
Okay, thank you. I think we have a hard decision to make, but I think you have a harder decision. So I don't envy being in your shoes. With that, I'll finish my questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to clarify, this resolution says rate increases in the 30s and the 24 range, but you're saying it's a 22% for the city? I'm trying to
So
understand.
for city employees, for city residents, residential residents
That aren't metered, so the cities.
that are not metered,
Okay.
their increase over 4 years will be 22%.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming today. I don't have any further questions for MSD, so I'll turn it back over to the sponsor of the bill, or the resolution. Oh, of course. Thank you, Alderman.
Changed how they did it. So back in 1992, 3, someplace around there, 4, we changed how we did MSD when I was first on the board. Daryl Jones was one of the commissioners who is a personal friend of mine, and we argued at length about what they were doing because I saw this coming at this time. I keep hearing you say that this increase is about people who are non-metered in the city. What is the increase for the people who are metered in the city?
So that would be the 32 or 34% number. I thought was asking and making a point about the unmetered, and I was just addressing that.
And what percentage of the city is metered versus non-metered?
I would recommend you ask your water department. That's where we get the data from. I don't have that off top.
Okay, but you do have the data. Is that correct? You don't have the data. You just attach your bills to. Wait a minute. So you don't have the data, because I see her, Ms. McCoy, back there shaking her head. So you just attach your bills to the city water department, but you don't have the data, how much is metered and how much is non-metered.
So the city water department on a regular basis, whatever the frequency is, either sends us water usage data during the winter months for those residential customers who are metered, and we bill assuming that usage throughout the year, or else they send us the attribute information, which we have assigned flows to for everybody else. Whether we're getting all the data from the city or not, I don't know. I think if you want to make absolutely sure you get accurate data, asking city water would probably be the best way to do it.
I heard the word assume. I don't like that whenever we're talking about things. So I was here before, right now, Kurt Scobie is our current director of public utilities. Before that was Dave Vizentainer. And both of them I used to be the chair of public employees, public utilities. Both of them have testified that we pay a water bill based on water closets. So if me and my husband live in a mansion and we have 12 water closets, we'll pay for 12 water closets, although there's no more usage for me having 12 water closets than if I had one. If 2 people live in a house, they're going to use the same amount. But the city went to that when we changed in the 90s. And the city never paid for going to meters because they make more money by not going to meters. And they're forcing people, and we've had this conversation, they're forcing people to have to pay to go to meters when that's not fair to me, because they changed it in the first place. And if you go back, I got my bills back from when I moved in my house and they are substantially more. How many times, you're talking about all the raises, which I agree. I didn't vote for the water bill either. I thought that was ridiculous. We shouldn't have done that to me. We didn't give them 30 days notice. How many times have you all went for an increase in, say, the last 8 to 10 years?
So because we have a continuous increasing capital program, same amount of money started in 2003, every 4 or 5 years, we've asked for an increase. Once you start borrowing, you borrow money for that period, build the projects. So for the next period, you've got debt service plus more projects. So it slowly goes up with the goal of getting everything done on the consent decree by the goal of 2039.
And so when you do these increases, you send out a thing, because while I was off the board for a few years, I became a committee person, and you came and talked to us. And you say, well, if you don't pass these things, it's going to cost more money. And so you got damned if you do, and more damned if you don't, is what I heard over the years. I'm particularly upset with MSD because you flooded my community over in North St. Louis off of Abner Place after I had told you that the big basins that you were building were not going to be enough to hold them. And everybody said, oh, no, Alderwoman, those are 100-year rain things, and that won't happen. But of course, I got pictures of my stuff being buckled, and I have about 20 houses that should have been bought out, because you bought out most of the neighborhood, and you won't buy out the rest of the neighborhood. I'm going to vote for this resolution, not because I think that we were right in raising the water, because I don't. And I said that on the floor, but I also think that the whole way that MSD and the water department work together is abominable, that it is horrible, that it is unfair, that when the Director of Public Utilities tell me, both of them, oh no, there's no basis of what the water bill is, and then you base your bill on something that there's no basis. The people of City of St. Louis don't get a fair shake. I also don't like what you're doing in North St. Louis, which is you're buying the houses and tearing down whole neighborhoods, and you're not doing it in the rest of the community. That really gets on my nerve. And then you want to be penny pitching about 10 or 15 houses and leave people surrounded by all of the mess that you've made. In fact, I intend to bring my own resolution condemning MSD for not buying those houses out and thinking that they can save a few dollars. And I talked to, before Ms. McCoy came, I talked to the previous person about this, and it's been going on now for 8 or 9 or 10 years, and you really don't do yourself a service, because you're only doing it in North St. Louis. And then I got a big article about how in the rest of the city you're having to buy and tunnel under. So it's really cheap to do it in North St. Louis. So 10 or 20 houses that you need to buy, you should have bought them out. And I hope at some point we find a way to get people on meters, because I think all our bills will go down, because nobody uses as much as what they're charged with. If you got 2 people in a house, having 8 bathrooms or 20 bathrooms, you don't use any more water. So that's really unfair, and you're paying more sewer. Then you can have people who have runoff and don't have water bill on. So if you have a vacant house, you can have runoff and you're not paying anything. And you're not. So it's really unfair, and we need to really look at what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate your time and coming today. Thank you for giving us so much of it. Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, I want to be respectful of the committee. I want to say, too, it's fairly unusual to allow a member of the public to speak so long, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer those questions and just be able to really parse to the bottom of it. I'm going to make this somewhat easy here. What's at issue here is a rate increase for a monopoly utility, which we don't have a choice. Again, who provides our water service. I want to point out as well that we have some of the highest sewer rates in the nation. According to MSD's own study, out of 50 major cities, we were in the top 10 to 15 for cost. So it is already an expensive service that is being provided. And what we're arguing about, we've talked about a lot of things, structure, the investments, et cetera. None of that is on the table. What is on the table is how we're calculating the debt service ratio here. And that is, we've talked a lot about saving money. If I were to make a comparison, I think Alderman Browning brought up a good point about paying on credit. A lot of our residents are facing liens. We've seen a very high-profile lawsuit really recently related to somebody who we all know wasn't able to pay their MSD bills. These are very expensive costs. And yes, I would love to be able to reduce costs on the front end, but the reality is, this is the difference between a 15 and a 30-year mortgage. I don't know about you all, but I couldn't afford a 15-year mortgage on the front end of buying my house. And I would have loved to be able to do that. And yes, it would have saved me money in the long run, but that is a savings that many of us just can't afford right now. And so, what we're looking for really is to stand up for our residents and just say, hey, look, we recognize that we've got to make investments in our utility infrastructure, but we're suffering. We're looking at inflation and other things that end up costing us a lot of money. With that, Alderwoman, I understand the Alderman from the 14th has an amendment to offer for the resolution.
Thank you. We'll place amendment number 1 to resolution number 146 in front of us. Alderman Aldridge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. What we ultimately have in front of us from Alderwoman Kara Spencer is a resolution. It is just a message that we are sending to MSD to hopefully ask them to do the right thing by picking one of the rates. I think it's been made clear tonight my view on this resolution. I know the echo from the Alderwoman from the 11th Ward that, is this just the right time to do anything? And I think from this Board of Aldermen, after we literally just passed a water increase, and I'm happy Alderwoman Ty has brought up the difference between meter and unmeter. So there'll be 2 different rates. For people that are metered will be 20-something, and then unmeter would be 20, and then for people that are metered, you're still talking in the 34 percentile, which is just a huge amount to increase people on. And I know we have a responsibility at the board to make sure that we don't fall short. But, when we did have the water rate bill in front of us, we've had plenty of time to make decisions on it and act on it. We had more time. Some people say we didn't, and it kind of came down our throats quick. But this is really being forced down our throats. And what this resolution does is says that the Board of Aldermen is urging the MSD Board of Trustees to reject the sewer rate increase. So we're not taking a stance, and we're saying we reject both increases that the MSD is offering and bringing forward, understanding it's unfair, it's unreasonable, and it is a huge burden on the city of St. Louis residents and businesses. And with that, Madam Chair, I know the bill sponsor also support the resolution, and I would close for any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Vollmer, any questions? Alderman Keys?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Browning?
No questions.
Thank you. Alderman Spencer, would you like to speak on this amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my understanding that the amendment removes the recommendation of taking the minority lower amount and strikes that and recommends that the Board of Trustees reject a sewer rate increase in a general sense. Okay. Sorry, just getting my clarity there.
Sure.
Just,
any thoughts or anything you want to share on that?
I don't have any additional thoughts to add on this at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. It's my understanding from what MSD was saying and what advocates for this resolution have said is that there are some deep needs to meet the consent decrees, which are very important to meet the regulations that have been set at a federal level. That's my understanding of what this 24% or 22 or 34, whatever number we're going with here would do. I think it might be a little irresponsible to not meet those consent decrees if that is mandated from the federal government. So that is my take on this amendment to this resolution. I think the very least, I do understand that costs are going up and our utility prices will go up as well. And I appreciate the comments from MSD about the support available. So anyone else want it? Sure.
If I may, what I would say is, again, according to the MS charter, the commissioners are able to accept, reject, or amend And so, the resolution does suggest rejection of the so really what I guess the amendment that the alderman from the 14th is bringing is just to reject the proposed 32%, which is the 32%, which is across all users. So there is some confusion on the 22% projected for non-metered users, but it would still potentially leave the door open for the commissioners to decide to do something else. This is simply saying reject without suggesting other solution. So the original intent of the resolution as presented by the sponsor, myself, was to say reject it and adopt this other solution, which is 24%. The amendment that the alderman from the 14th is presenting is to say reject it without specifying an alternative solution, which is, and to your point, Madam Chair, not necessarily saying, to reject any of the consent decree, but just recognizing that the proposed 33% is not something we're recommending at this time, that we would ask that they reject it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I had, your original resolution as it was written, made sense to me because it offered this is what the Board of Aldermen is saying is reasonable to meet the consent decree, and for us to say reject the increase, just the sewer rate increase, That's not further defined as what increase, any increase, reject any sewer rate increase. It doesn't say, it says the sewer rate increase. So I guess the one it's referring to then is not clear to me if it's, am I making sense to you?
I hear you. Yes, Madam Chair. I think what the alderman is suggesting is to reject the proposed rate increase. Again, the commissioners are proposing the 32%. There is, as Brian pointed out, there was a lot of shaking of the heads when I was talking about the two options. I think there is some semantics here, but there is one proposed rate increase, which is the 32% across, right? We're suggesting that they reject that and specifying specifically to adopt the 24. And the alderman from the 14th suggesting that specifying 24% rate increase is not is not necessary in this solution of rejecting. The commissioners could, as per their charter, adopt any other solution, but we're simply saying that for us, I would, with the amendment from the 14th, would be to reject the proposed 32% rate increase.
Without giving any
Without
sort of
specifying
on the solution that they're
Correct.
asking for. So
Correct.
it almost simplifies the
It almost
resolution a bit.
simplifies it. That's
Okay.
correct. Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, yes.
Alderman Ballmer, please.
Well, to me, the amendment says that they don't want any increase whatsoever, is what
That is how I
that's
read
what the increase says to me. That's what the increase will say to the public. And I think, no offense to anyone, that would be irresponsible to say that we can, when we know there has to be done, let us take a logical path to this, which is simply still an opinion. We all know what Mr. Villa said about resolutions, which I can't repeat here.
Thank you,
But-
Alderman. Your point
Thank
is
you.
well taken. I also had read it that way, and I agree that if I read it that way, then it's very likely that the rest of the public would read it that way too. Is there a motion to adopt resolution amendment number 1 to resolution number 146? Hearing none, we will continue to consider resolution number 146 with no amendments. Does anyone have any further discussion? Okay, wonderful. Any closing remarks?
Thank
No,
you,
we've
Madam
kept you
Chair.
very long.
Again, appreciate y'all being here for so long. This is an issue for which we have no direct control, but as I mentioned on the front end, this is an unusual, we're one of the very few utilities in the nation that doesn't have direct oversight by the state public service commission or a municipal oversight like our city water. This is a board of trustees appointed 3 from the mayor of the city of St. Louis and 3 from the county executive. And therefore, those 2 government entities have a responsibility to weigh in on behalf of their constituents. That is what I'm asking this board to do, weigh in on the proposed rate increase for our constituents, as well as ratepayers. As the city of St. Louis pays almost $2 million in MSD fees a year, this rate increase would add almost $500,000 to our budget over the next 4 years, which is something that, as we all know, would be very difficult for the city of St. Louis to stomach. And so with that, just to weigh in and support our residents, I think is an important step for the Board of Aldermen to do, and taking the reasonable step, the reasonable recommendation of 24% is what this resolution is asking to do. Thank you. With that, I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you very much. At this time, I will entertain a do pass recommendation for resolution number 146. Anyone like to make the motion for a do pass recommendation?
I move that we pass Resolution 146 with a do pass recommendation.
Hearing no second, the motion fails.
So we're telling our residents we are okay with their.
Thank you all for being here. Okay, moving on with the agenda, we have item number 1, Board Bill number 153. Alderwoman Sharon Tyus, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Next time when you ask me, do I want to go second, I will not be so so inclined. My board bill is going to be really easy.
I appreciate that. Thank you for being here.
Really would have been done a long time ago. As I was the chair of streets for several years and sat on streets for 20 years, I always believe in maps. There was not a map attached to my board bill, so I ran out and had a map
Thank you very much. Thank you for doing that. We really appreciate that.
And I got one for you, Tracy. This one I scribbled out a little bit, and I got one. And I had to highlight, I'm sorry, with yellow, just so you could see the area. Okay. Madam Chair, may I continue?
Please, you're recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. I appear before you asking for your favorable consideration for Board Bill 153. Board Bill 153 is a vacation of a street and part of an alley. It is for a development that we're going to build on Natural Bridge. It will be a senior building and a grocery store. It was going to be Phil's grocery store, but we're out looking for another grocery store, but we're still going to build out the space. In order to do that, off of Natural Bridge, you'll see highlighted in yellow, there's a street called Clarence. They would vacate the street from Natural Bridge to Lexington, and then there's an alley between Lexington and Natural Bridge. They would only vacate half of the alley. I have a acknowledgement of vacation petition signed by, it's only 2 owners. One of them is the person who's doing the development, and the other one is the other person who's on the alley. They're going to rebuild the alley so that that person will not just be blocked in. They're going to build a L alley so you'll be able to get out. And that's basically what Board Bill 153 is about. I'm sorry, I think I might have put 151 because I emailed it to you too, but it's 153.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you for that presentation. You don't have any speakers with you today or anything?
Speakers.
Okay, fantastic. Wonderful. So Alderman Vollmer, any questions? Alderman Vollmer, any questions on board? Okay, wonderful. Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very familiar with the project, and I have last year when we were the 21st ward, I did write a letter of support for this project. So we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you, Alderman Aldrich.
No questions. I hate to hear that Field Foods won't, but I know you are determined to fight for your people over there to make sure that that food doesn't have a grocery store. So taking proactive steps to vacate the alley is very smart, and I support it.
Thank you. Vice Chair Browning.
I echo my colleagues' comments. Thank you for your efforts, and no questions.
Thank you. I also have no questions. Very straightforward. Anything to close?
Madam Chair, I'll just thank you for all of your support. Alderwoman Keys is right across the street. She used to represent it. Alderman Aldrich is right down the street. We have an Aldi's over there, but this will be my second grocery store I built, because I built Snooks too. So I had to brag a little bit, because I'm going to kill
brag.
that food desert and one step at a time, okay? And we actually have another grocery store we're working on Martin Luther King, so that's gonna be my thing, building grocery stores where people don't have them. But I appreciate the time, and as I said, next time, Madam Chair, I will ask what the,
I did not expect it to go that long, Alderwoman. I would not have asked you to go second had I known that.
She needs to look out for her kid. I can cool my heels and wait, and I appreciate it, and I ask for your favorable.
Thank you so much for your patience, and thank you for your time. I am excited for all the grocery store. And with that, I will entertain
So move.
we have a motion and a second. We learned how to do it. Wonderful. Madam, thank you. A request
No,
for
we can't
previous
do-
roll.
We can't do
Hearing any,
roll.
we didn't
Balmer.
have minutes. Okay, objection to previous roll. We have an objection to previous roll. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldrich. Chair Schweitzer.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes.
With your vote, you have sustained the motion from the Alderman Balmer, and we have passed Board Bill 153 out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Thank you for being here, Alderman.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, let's
One for their support.
continuing on with the agenda.
Turn this mic off.
Thank you, yes. Committee discussions, we have none. Any written testimony
We did have one written testimony in the drive.
regarding the MSD resolution?
Mhm.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Any announcements from members of the committee? Wonderful, we had perfect attendance today, so no excused members. And with that, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Previous roll. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Alderman Tyus, you're not on the committee. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.